Hazrat Nuh A.S. Part 1. The Dawah and Patience. Brothers and sisters, imagine a man who dedicated not just his life, but almost 1,000 years to one mission. Year after year, decade after decade, century after century, he gave his message with patience, with sincerity, and with love. And yet, after 950 years of effort, only a small group of people chose to follow him. This man is Hazrat Nuh A.S, one of the greatest prophets of Allah, a man whose story is mentioned in the Quran more than 40 times. His journey is not just history, it is a living lesson for you and me today. It is a story of patience when mocked, of faith when rejected, and of standing firm when the whole world turns against you. Hazrat Nuh A.S. came from the lineage of Hazrat Shees A.S, the son of Hazrat Adam A.S. After generations passed from Adam, people slowly began to drift away from Tawheed. Shaitan, who had promised to misguide mankind, used his oldest and most dangerous weapon, shirk. In the beginning, when righteous men of that time passed away, Shaitan whispered to people, "Build statues of them so that you may remember their good deeds." At first, these statues were just symbols, but when those generations died and new ones came, the people began to worship the statues themselves. They named them Wad,
appointment as prophet in his Dawah mission. When corruption had spread and shirk had taken over the hearts of people, Allah chose Hazrat Nuh A.S as his prophet. Allah does not choose ordinary people for this noble duty. He chooses the most truthful, the most patient, and the most sincere of his servants. Hazrat Nuh A.S was a man of honesty, humility, and deep connection with Allah. The Quran tells us in Surah Hud, "Indeed, we sent Nuh to his people. He said, 'O my people, worship Allah alone. You have no deity other than Him. Indeed, I fear for you the punishment of a tremendous day.'" This was the simple and powerful message of Nuh A.S. Worship Allah alone. Leave your idols. Return to the path of Tawheed. He warned them of the punishment of Allah, but he also invited them with hope, reminding them of Allah's mercy. Hazrat Nuh A.S.'s Dawah was not one-sided. He did not only warn them about punishment, he also gave them glad tidings. In Surah Nuh, he says, "Seek forgiveness from your Lord. Indeed, He is ever forgiving. He will send rain upon you in abundance and increase."
Calling day and night, public and private. When Allah chose Hazrat Nuh A.S. as a prophet, his mission was clear: call the people back to Tawheed. The people around him had filled their lives with idol worship, arrogance, and corruption. Yet, Hazrat Nuh A.S. did not lose hope. With sincerity in his heart and trust in Allah, he began his dawah. The Quran beautifully describes his efforts. In Surah Nuh, verses 5 to 9, Allah tells us how Nuh A.S. himself expressed his struggle. "My Lord, I invited my people night and day, but my invitation increased them not except in flight. And indeed, every time I invited them that you may forgive them, they put their fingers in their ears, covered themselves with their garments, persisted, and were arrogant with great arrogance. Then I invited them publicly. Then I announced to them and also spoke to them in private." Think about this for a moment. Dawah is not just about speaking once or twice. Hazrat Nuh A.S. called his people at all times. He tried openly in the marketplaces. He tried secretly, one-on-one. He tried softly. He tried firmly. He used wisdom, examples, promises, and warnings. Yet every time his people turned away. Some mocked him, some insulted him, some simply ignored him. But he never stopped. Not only did he warn them of Allah's punishment, but he also gave them hope. In Surah Nuh, verses 10 to 12, he told them, "Seek forgiveness from your Lord. Indeed, He is oft forgiving. He will send rain to you in abundance, and give you increase in wealth and children, and provide for you gardens and rivers." Subhanallah, look at the mercy of a prophet. Even after being mocked, he still prayed for their forgiveness. still told them that if they return to Allah, they will have blessings, wealth, and happiness. This is true Dawah, never giving up and always combining warning with hope. But instead of listening, his people accused him of being a liar, a madman, and just an ordinary human. They closed their ears when he spoke, they pulled their clothes over their heads to avoid hearing his message. Imagine the pain of speaking for centuries, yet being mocked every time. Yet, Hazrat Nuh A.S. continued with patience. His Dawah mission was not measured in years or decades. It was 950 years, almost a millennium of constant calling. And still, only a small group of weak and poor people followed him. The leaders and rich mocked him, saying, "Why should we follow you when only the lowest among us follow you?" The lesson for us is powerful. True Dawah is not about quick results, large crowds, or worldly recognition. It is about sincerity and patience. Hazrat Nuh A.S.'s mission teaches us that guidance comes only from Allah, and our duty is to deliver the message with wisdom and perseverance.
Rejection and mockery, the arrogance of his people. Despite the patience and mercy of Hazrat Nuh A.S., the response from his people was arrogance and mockery. They did not just ignore his words, they actively insulted and ridiculed him. The Quran records their words in Surah Hud 11:27. The chiefs of his people said, "We see you as nothing but a man like ourselves, and we see that only the lowest among us follow you. And we do not see in you any superiority over us. Rather, we think you are liars." These words reveal the sickness of arrogance in their hearts. Instead of valuing truth, they looked at social class. They could not accept that poor, simple people believed in Nuh A.S. They thought leadership belonged only to the rich and powerful. But prophethood is not about wealth or power. It is about sincerity and closeness to Allah. They even mocked his persistence. In Surah Shu'ara 26:11, they said, "Shall we believe in you while the lowest class of people follow you?" To them, following the truth was beneath their dignity. They valued pride and status more than guidance. This arrogance was their downfall. Not only this, they accused Nuh A.S. of being mad. In Surah Qamar 54:9, Allah says, "The people of Nuh denied before them, and they denied our servant and said, 'He is mad,' and he was repelled." Imagine the pain of a prophet who cared for his people, prayed for them, and dedicated his life to saving them. Yet they called him insane, mocked his message, and pushed him away. They also demanded worldly gain. In Surah Hud 11:29, Nuh A.S. responds, "O my people, I do not ask you for wealth in return. My reward is only from Allah." He made it clear that his mission was not for money, power, or fame. It was purely for Allah. But his people still refused. Instead of repenting, their arrogance grew. Every generation passed down the stubbornness to the next. The Quran in Surah Nuh 71:23 tells us that they even encouraged each other, saying, "Do not leave your gods, do not leave Wad, Swa, Yaghuth, Ya'uk, and Nasar." This was not just rejection, it was active rebellion. They clung to false idols with pride and mocked the truth. The lesson here is clear. When hearts are filled with arrogance, even the clearest truth cannot penetrate. Guidance is not about intelligence or wealth, it is about humility. Just as the people of Nuh A.S. rejected the truth because of pride, today many reject Islam's guidance because of ego, materialism, or the fear of losing status. Hazrat Nuh A.S.'s story warns us, arrogance blinds, but humility opens the heart to faith. Patience for 950 years, perseverance in the face of rejection. When we speak of patience, we usually think of waiting a few days, months, or maybe years. But Hazrat Nuh A.S.'s patience was not measured in decades, it was nearly a millennium. The Quran tells us clearly in Surah Ankabut 29:14,
And we certainly sent Nuh to his people, and he remained among them 1,000 years minus 50 years. Then the flood seized them while they were wrongdoers. 950 years, generation after generation. Fathers would reject Nuh A.S., then their children would grow up and reject him as well. Then the grandchildren would mock him the same way. Imagine the weight of that struggle. Almost 10 centuries of constant insult, humiliation, and refusal. Yet Nuh A.S. did not give up. Most of us feel disheartened if we give Dawah once or twice and people don't listen. We feel exhausted when someone mocks us for practicing deen. But Hazrat Nuh A.S. carried this burden for centuries. Every day he renewed his hope. Every day he prayed for his people. Every day he knocked on their hearts, even when they slammed their doors shut. And yet, after all these centuries, the Quran tells us that only a small group believed. In Surah Hud 11:40, it is mentioned that only a few were with him on the ark. The majority, despite having every opportunity, turned away. What does this teach us? That success is not about numbers. Success is not about convincing the majority. Success is about sincerity and consistency. Hazrat Nuh A.S. will stand on the Day of Judgment with only a small group of followers, but he will stand as one of the greatest prophets because he fulfilled his duty with patience. It also teaches us that true faith often begins with the humble, not the powerful. The leaders mocked Nuh A.S. because his followers were poor and weak, but those weak ones were actually the strongest in faith. Today as well, Islam does not spread through wealth and status, but through hearts that are humble before Allah. The patience of Hazrat Nuh A.S. also gives comfort to every believer who struggles. If your family rejects your deen, remember the family of Nuh A.S. If your society mocks you, remember the society of Nuh A.S. If you feel alone, remember that the prophets often stood almost alone, yet remained firm. Patience is not just waiting, it is standing firm with hope in Allah when everything around you is against you. Hazrat Nuh A.S. showed us that patience is the mark of true faith.
Emotional closing. The Dawah and patience of Hazrat Nuh A.S. My brothers and sisters, pause for a moment and think. Could any of us continue for 950 years in the face of constant mockery and rejection? Most of us feel broken if people turn away once, if our advice is ignored a few times. Yet Hazrat Nuh A.S. stood like a mountain of patience, unshaken by the storms of arrogance around him. He called his people with love, he prayed for their forgiveness, he offered them blessings if they turned back to Allah. But his people only closed their ears, pulled their garments over their heads, and mocked him as insane. Still, he endured. Still, he carried on. Still, he fulfilled his mission. And what do we learn from this? That Dawah is not measured in quick results. Guidance belongs to Allah, and our job is only to deliver the message with sincerity. True success is not in the numbers who follow you, but in standing firm before Allah, knowing that you tried your best. The patience of Hazrat Nuh A.S. is a light for every believer who feels isolated, who feels mocked, who feels that their voice is ignored. His story tells us, stay firm. Even if the world rejects you, Allah is with you. But this is only the first half of his journey, because after centuries of patience, there came a turning point when Allah's command descended, when the ark was built in the desert, and when the great flood changed the course of history. Insha'Allah, in the next part of our series, Messengers 3, Hazrat Nuh A.S., the Ark and the Great Flood, we will witness how Allah's promise came true, how the believers were saved, and what lessons we can take from that powerful event. That completes our first part of this episode. To be continue.
Hazrat Nuh A.S. spent 950 years, almost 1,000 years, calling his people towards Allah. Day and night, publicly and privately, he invited them to Tawheed. Yet, only a handful believed, while the majority mocked him, closed their ears, and turned away. Still, he never gave up. For 9.5 centuries, he continued with patience and sincerity. This is the key lesson of Part 1. True Dawah is not about numbers or quick results. It is about standing firm, just as Hazrat Nuh A.S. stood for 950 years with unshakable faith.